Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. And this one's going to be a little different. This one is going to be me getting a little vulnerable and sharing some things that I haven't shared before. And I'm doing this for a couple different reasons. One, when you talk to me about like what are the things that fire me up and get me the most excited, well, you obviously know one of them. It's working with my concussion clients. You also know the second one. It's mentoring the clinicians I get to mentor and work with in this concussion space. And the third piece that if like you really want to see me like go on a tangent and like get the biggest smile on my face and get like diamonds in my eyeballs and all the things is when I get to talk about business, but specifically helping somebody envision and build and bring this thing to life. That is the other thing that I just get so fired up about. And I realize I don't talk about that piece of things a lot. And the beautiful things when we talk, and I've talked about this before with the Concussion Nerds program, is that some of the nerds are stepping into this place of, I love what I do and I have increased confidence and I want to start a business. And so they're bringing business questions. Or we have other nerds who are completely revamping their clinics to primarily serve concussion. Or we have other nerds who are just starting to integrate it into their clinic and they're wondering how to do that because they still serve a predominant MSK or pelvic or whatever other population. And I love all of that. And it's probably because I have a lot of different experience on my own journey of building my clinic over the last 9 years, of starting and failing in the online space more than once, and all the lessons I've learned along the way. And I just had this beautiful opportunity just last week to be a guest on James Wedmore's podcast. If you don't know who James Wedmore is, he has a program called BBD. It's called Business by Design. And I joined his program last year because I really wanted support from a coach in this space of someone to really help me get my Concussion Nerds program out to the world. I believe so much in what this program is and what it does and how it supports therapists. And I've seen it. Oh, I've seen it. And it was beautiful because, again, in the clinical space, it's almost like sometimes we're ashamed to talk about money, right? We own businesses. We own businesses, ideally to have an amazing impact in the world, but also to live the life we dream of living from a financial and freedom perspective. And I got to share my success story on the James Wedmore podcast. And I've had so many people reach out about how inspiring it was and how great it was. And I realized I've never shared that with any of you. And so I wanted to do a bit of that because there was 100% a time, not too long ago, my friends. I'm going to say, when was it? It was right after COVID in 2021, 22, early 22. I thought I was going to lose it all. I was terrified I was going to lose my clinic. But it wasn't because we didn't have patients. It wasn't because we didn't have clients. In fact, it would have been the saddest thing ever for multiple reasons, except and for the fact that I almost had to close my doors and almost lost everything while still carrying a 6-month wait list to get in for our services. So it's like scratching your head on like, how the heck does that work, right? So I want to talk about this business journey a bit. And what I do say all the time is you really, truly don't need to have everything figured out. And I think some of the times I grew up with, my parents were great, but I had a mom that worked in the hospital. She still did 30 years, full pension, benefits, all the things. And that was super valued in my family. And that was the aspiring goal. Get a good job, get a Monday to Friday, get a pension. And so when I started as a physical therapist, I worked in the hospital system and I hated it. I loved my coworkers. I loved some of the units I got to work on, but I struggled with having no creative freedom. I really struggled with any time I had an idea to try something, you couldn't try it because it had to go through a work party and then it had to be assessed and then it had to go public practice. And I understand why that process exists for that setting. And I felt so stifled. So I started to step into private and I worked at an amazing clinic in Vancouver, had some beautiful mentorship. from two women who I still consider some of the best neurological physical therapists out there in the world of stroke, Parkinson's, MS, that sort of thing. And then we moved to the island. So my son was 4 months old when we moved here. So the beautiful thing, blessing in disguise, is that I didn't have to get a job right away, right? If you're not in Canada, we get a year maternity leave. And so I had a year. And I started looking around at clinics in the area, and I really couldn't find something that served my niche. There was a lot of orthopedic clinics in Nanaimo, which is where I am from, but there was nothing neurological. And neurological, stroke, Parkinson's, MS, spinal cord, that was my love at the time. And I always giggle now because I went to the hospital. So I was like, okay, maybe I got to work back to the hospital system. And I swear I met the one person that I was supposed to meet to deter me from ever working at the hospital in my city. Because I will say this, every person I've met since that works at the hospital in my city is absolutely lovely. Absolutely lovely. But the person that I met was not. And the person that I met wasn't even the person giving me my tour. It was just another therapist who was in the space and created such this unfortunate atmosphere of experience that I walked out of there and I called my husband at the time and I said, I guess I'm starting my own business. And then Symphony was born. And now how Symphony began, so at the time we were called Symphony Neurological Rehabilitation. We have obviously undergone some branding. So those of you that know us now as Symphony Brain Performance. And I started as a mobile business, right? I drove to people's homes and saw them in their home because as much as I had done research of the people in the area that I lived, I truly still really didn't know if there was a need. So I started as a mobile service, full disclosure, because it was the lowest risk. All I needed to do was have my car, which I already had. I had a massage table. I had a bag of like some things that I used because I didn't use a ton of equipment. And that was it. Lowest risk ability for me to start. My goal was to eventually open a brick and mortar. Well, we opened the brick and mortar 10 months later because things were going right. Now, here's the thing. I went from really having zero risk to all of a sudden, there was a rent that I needed to pay every month. There were bills that I needed to pay every month. And I was the only person working in my clinic to make that happen. And I was terrified. I was still a new therapist in town, so people didn't know who I was. So from a therapist perspective, like, who's this strange person? What's this new clinic? We're not going to go work with her. I had to prove myself, really. And I started to do that through the work I did with my clients. I also networked my butt off, right? So when you are in this space, the biggest question I always get is like, how do I pay for marketing? What marketing do I need to pay for to get word out that I'm doing this? I have never once in my life, my friends, paid for marketing for my clinic. Build relationships, expand your network, and do good work. The clinic started to build for what I would say are a few reasons. One, my clients were having positive outcomes. And so my clients started sharing with their physicians and their teams and their friends about the work we were doing. And that word of mouth drove beautiful new referrals into my clinic. Two, I didn't wait for people to come to me. You know that old saying, build it and they will come? No, they won't. You need to put in the work. You truly do. And for me, that work meant, who is my ideal person? Who is my client? At that moment in time, it was the Parkinson's, stroke, and truly MS and spinal cord. Those were my four main populations that I worked with. So guess what I did? Where do those people go? Stroke groups, Parkinson's groups, MS conferences. GF Strong is the main rehab hospital in British Columbia that all spinal cord goes to, and then they go home. I reached out. I went and led exercise classes for the stroke group. I went and led education sessions for the stroke group. And after every time I did that, guess who got new referrals into the clinic? I did the same thing for the Parkinson's Society. I did the same thing for the MS Society. And I connected with GF Strong and their discharge coordinators to say, I'm a new neuro clinic in Nanaimo. If any of your spines or any of your clients are getting discharged back to the island, please let them know who we are. And we started to build. Now, here's the thing. When things start to ramp up, and this is going to feed into my first mistake. There's lots of mistakes. This is the first, I think, big mistake that we need to remember as business owners. When things start to ramp up, it can be so exciting. That getting caught up in that momentum and all the things coming your direction, and you're just saying yes to everything. And that's what I was doing. And we added new therapists to the team, and we started to expand our service offerings, right? So we started with just neurological, and then we became neurological and orthopedic, and then we became neurological, orthopedic, and pediatric, and then we became neurological, orthopedic, pediatric, and vestibular, and then we became neurological, orthopedic, pediatric, vestibular, pelvic health, and then we became neurological, pediatric, oh my gosh, I've lost track of it, blah, 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 and concussion. And we became a clinic that was generalized and did a lot of everything with one or two therapists who were really good in one area. I'm not saying that's a bad thing for the right person, but what that meant for me and for my team was that we lost the common ground of what we could connect on. We lost the thread of what linked us all together. I lost my joy and my spark of going into the clinic every day. Because every idea that I have truly to this day, and since 2017, every idea that I have predominantly is on how to expand, change, lead, offer, create in the concussion space. And if your team doesn't share your vision of direction or of growth, then it is incredibly challenging, if not impossible, to bring everyone together and on board to move for forward momentum and change. I had amazing therapists on my team. They kicked royal ass at what they did. But how it ended up turning out was I had one physio that did pelvic and ortho. I had one physio that did neuro and peds and concussion. We had a physio that did ortho. We had a physio that did pelvic and neuro. So there was a lot of overlap, but we didn't have a common thread anymore. And my thread, my vision, my North Star, which I most definitely forgot about, didn't apply to the clinic as a whole. Right? When we have a vision, that vision, it can shift, it can change, but that vision is that North Star for you to check in with when an opportunity comes, for you to say, does this opportunity make sense? Yes or no? Is this opportunity going to keep me on the path of the North Star and the vision? Yes or no? I forgot to keep checking in on my vision. The clinic exploded. Truthfully, I opened the doors for the clinic in 2016. 2015, I opened mobile. 2016, we opened the brick and mortar. 2018, we'd moved to a bigger location. We were exploding by 2019, except I didn't love going to work anymore. And when your clinic owner doesn't love going to work anymore, that's a problem. And I truly come back to, although I had the most amazing team, and a lot of them are actually still with me, some of them have moved on, we lost our thread. We lost our shared North Star. We lost our shared vision. And so that excitement to come together, to build and create momentum, to have that buy-in was gone. I also discovered at that point in time that I loved the online business space and that I had this beautiful dream and this impact of serving our clients in the clinic and having this greater impact in the online space. And at that point in time, by 2019, I knew it was in the concussion space that I wanted to do something. I created my very first program called Concussion Coach. And in truth, actually, if you scroll back, deleted minimal to nothing from my Instagram. Obviously, I've deleted some stuff throughout the years, but if you scroll back to the beginning of my Instagram, you will see, oh my gosh, will you see the evolution of my brand? But you will see the very first graphics I ever made, which are absolutely horrific, by the way. They're terrible, but I leave them there because they're part of this journey, you guys. When we build a business, we can't just say, I'm going to build. So my goal at the time was to be the go-to clinic on Vancouver Island for neurological disorders. That was my goal, right? That was the initial goal of Symphony. But you can't just live for reaching that goal because then you're going to miss all the beautiful lessons that come along the way. It truly is a journey, and there's going to be mistakes and failures and upsets and lessons the whole freaking way. And so if you go back in my Instagram and scroll back to the very beginning, there's a lot of posts on there, so it might take you a bit. You will see the horrific graphics that I created. But you will also see the beginning of my very first online business called Concussion Coach, where I had no fucking clues. Excuse my language. No clue what I was doing. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. But I was going to step into this space because I was already seeing a need in my clinic. We were already seeing people that there was so much information that we wanted to share. And truly, we just didn't have enough clinical time to do it, that I wanted to create another avenue, another platform, because if my clients were struggling, I knew there was other people struggling. Okay, so then I realized that to try to treat full time and build an online business and be a mom and be a wife was a lot. And things started to suffer, right? Then we all know what happened in 2020. And in 2020, with COVID, I never thought the day would come that anyone told me I had to close the doors of my clinic. We're a healthcare service, right? We are a healthcare service. We keep people moving. We get them mobile, and we know that movement and exercise and all these things are positive for our health. So I never thought I would see the day that I was told I had to close my clinic doors. I was lucky in that we'd already been offering telehealth for about 3 years at that point in time. So truly, I shifted everyone over to telehealth for days after we closed. The problem was that it was still very new to clients. And so not all of our clients were comfortable shifting into a telehealth format. Many of them were, but not all of them. We had to be closed for 2.5 months. When we reopened, with the way our clinic is laid out, we also could not come back to full caseload, and we couldn't come back to full therapists in the clinic. So when we opened our doors back up, therapists had to alternate between days in clinic and virtual care, and we had to have this increased space. So the volume of the number of people we could see in the clinic was significantly decreased. Thank goodness I had savings. That's what I'm going to say. What also happened over COVID was that some of the team members we have a really great team, but some of them realized that they didn't want to treat concussion. So we were shifting really heavily into a concussion caseload by this point in time. We still had everything else, but we were definitely shifting more into a concussion caseload. And some of our therapists decided that concussion wasn't something they wanted to treat. And so they wanted to go to a more traditional orthopedic practice. And so they made that decision to leave. We also had therapists who decided that it was time for them to open their own businesses. So 3 of my different therapists left to open their own businesses, and they're thriving today. It's amazing, actually, and we wish them well. That was 3 allied health different support therapists that left. Life still goes on. Rents still go up. Personal things still happen. Families need support, so other therapists need to reduce hours. Therapists have new children, so they go on year-long maternity leaves. And I found myself in a very precarious spot. The clinic carried a 6-month waitlist, to the point where physicians at this point just stopped referring to us because they'd be like, this is where you need to go, but you're never going to get in. So just go somewhere, like go to another clinic. The problem was that we didn't have therapists to treat. And here's the crazy thing, because this was literally 2 to 3 years ago at this point. I live in Nanaimo, British Columbia. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It is not known for its nightlife. It is not known for its theater or its culture or its dining experiences. So if you are a young single person, it's not most people's destination place. And if you love culture and theater and good food and wine, it's also not usually falling into that list of places people want to live. And we were a bit of a specialized clinic. So leading up to this point, I should backtrack a little bit. So I was definitely struggling with some personal issues throughout some of this time as well. And I felt so disconnected from my clinic and my team. So disconnected from everyone. That thread that I talked about earlier, that we have this thread that joins us together of a shared vision that we're all building together as a team, I really felt didn't exist for multitudes of reasons. And going to work in the morning was hard. And I would sit with my clinic manager or a good friend of mine, and I'd just be like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just feel so pulled apart. I don't love being here. We're not connected. And I knew something needed to change, but I sure as heck didn't know what to do. I was terrified, you guys. I was terrified. And I went to a conference, and there was a speaker at the conference. His name's Dr. James Rouse, and he's like one of the most amazing humans in the world. And he does nothing but exude light and love to the world, like truly. And I remember I went and talked to him after his presentation. The conference is the Epic Community Conference, by the way. It's amazing. It's in Toronto in December. And while Dr. James was presenting, I was just sitting at my table, bawling my eyes out, wiped my tears away. Go and talk to him after. And I said, Dr. James, I'm stuck. I said, I'm really struggling with my clinic. And I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I said, I don't know if I would bring it back to basics. I don't know if I scale it all back and like just go out on my own again. Don't know what to do. And he looked at me. Dr. James has this effect on people, by the way. He looked at me and he took my hands and he said, Natasha, you already know. And then he just wrapped his arms around me and he gave me the biggest hug. And he says, Natasha, don't you want to choose joy? And I just started bawling because joy was not where I was at. We were struggling financially with the clinic. I was disconnected with the clinic. I hadn't held true to my vision. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore, to be honest. And I remember going upstairs. I literally cried and probably snotted all over his shoulder too, because I was very not the most attractive crier in the world. I remember going up to my hotel room after, and I just started journaling. So you've all heard me talk about it. Free writing is one of my, like when I'm really struggling to move through something, pulling out my journal and just free writing is one of the biggest tools that I can have. And the last sentence I wrote was, it's time to bring the clinic back home. It's time to bring the clinic back. I don't know why hold on. I don't know why I'm crying right now. This is ridiculous. I wrote, it's time to bring the clinic back home. Home to my heart. Home to my passion. Home to my creativity and my vision so that I could truly lead from a place of inspiration and make change and impact. I had been so afraid to make this decision for fear of disappointing other people. I had been so afraid to make this decision for fear of letting down my therapist and putting them in a point where we transition the clinic that they might have less income towards the bigger vision, which would then impact their family. I had so much fear around how I was going to disappoint my team, which had held me back from doing this for so long. I was in a place where I was trying my best and probably doing a terrible job at it, but trying my best to please and make sure everyone else was taken care of while I was literally like dying inside. And again, the final sentence in that journal entry was, it's time to bring the clinic back home. So what ended up happening, and this was honestly still before the really rocky periods, this is before I thought I was going to lose everything, is I came home and I sat down with each and every single one of my therapists. And I said, I'm bringing the clinic back home, which means we are a concussion and neurological rehab clinic. And if that's not something you want to do, that's okay. And I appreciate you, and I love you. Thank you for being part of this, and I will support you in whatever decision you make. Because I was in this place where I thought there might be therapists that were like, this isn't for me, and choose to go work somewhere else. But I was at a point finally in myself where if they all decided to do that, I knew I would be okay. I was prepared to go back to a 500 square foot studio and start over because I knew that that was going to be my path. Having belief in yourself and having belief in that vision helps making that scary step possible. If we don't believe in ourselves, we won't take that step because self-doubt and fear will win. I believed so much that this was the right path. I was willing to go back to a 500 square foot space. Now, yay, that didn't happen. And what actually ended up happening was the opposite. Yes, we'd already had therapists that chose to leave during COVID to open their own businesses. Okay. We had another therapist who chose that concussion was no longer her path, and she chose to leave as well. I had another therapist who I was concerned was going to leave because she was an orthopedic concussion split. And she surprised me saying, all I want to do is treat concussion going forward. And I was like, yes, please. And then I had a therapist that I knew was going to be coming back from maternity leave. And she decided, and she was very okay with it too. So I had this fear that I was going to lose all these staff members. And in fact, the ones that were still with me were on board and excited about this new direction. It was after this, we started shifting back to the concussion. Again, as we started doing more specialized work and really niching, our demand as a clinic grew. This is when we started building that 6-month waitlist because we were doing amazing freaking work with our clients. The work you get at Symphony, you don't get anywhere else on the island. You don't, right? There's a reason that clients currently fly from friggin' London and Holland and Boston and the Southern US and Eastern Canada to come work with us. But 3 years ago, when we were starting to do this, or when we were doing this in this way, concussion wasn't cool, right? Concussion did not have the interest that it has today. And so although we had this amazing 6-month wait list, again, we also live on the island, so most therapists don't work full time. They just don't. We had this amazing wait list. We didn't have the staff to meet the demand. And in BC, in Canada, to be honest, we were going through some issues with licensing new physical therapists. So I couldn't find anybody to come join my team. I had difficulty hiring someone for probably about 3 years, truly. Mostly because people didn't want to niche down into concussion, the ones that I did speak to, or it didn't feel like the right fit. And I will never be that person to hire someone just because I need somebody. It has to feel right. They have to fit. And so I was in this really terrifying place where literally we were in the red for the first time of me ever owning the clinic. And we were like in the red. And it was terrifying. And then things started to shift. And again, the work we were doing spoke for itself. You started to see me show up more in this online world and space and education and awareness. I started booking more intensive clients. The clinic was full. And then there started to be interest from therapists. And it's so cool because we're in a place today where I've hired more therapists to join my team in the last year and a half than I was able to in the last 3. Now, that could absolutely 100 speak to my ability to recruit. Totally possible. Totally possible. Except the beautiful thing, and like many places as a therapist that are coming to work with us, are moving to Nanaimo because of our reputation. They're moving to Nanaimo to come mentor and work with us. A, because they love the outdoors, so it's like perfect place for them. But B, they know the learning, the education, and the experiencing they're going to get because of the work we're doing in this space. Momentum is building again, and has been now for probably about the last year. Momentum is building again, but here's the difference today from the first time momentum built. The first time momentum started building in my clinic, it was chaotic momentum. There was a demand for a service, we added the service. There was a demand for another service, we added that service. And we did that over and over and over again until I had amazing humans, disjointed vision that wasn't clear, that wasn't going in a singular direction, that we did not have that golden thread that tied us together. That's what happened the first time. I did not have my North Star. I did not have my vision to come check in on to see if the opportunity was in alignment with the direction we wanted to go, with the impact we wanted to have, and the purpose I created our space for. I just added anything. That was my mistake the first time. This time, it's different. This time, we have a vision. This time, we know we are leaders in the concussion space. We know we want to do epic work. We know we want to support both individuals on a journey and other clinics and clinicians who work with concussion. We have a team who are shared and united in our passion for the impact we want to have in the concussion and neurological space. I have a team who is excited and forward-thinking and motivated to do things differently, which is amazing for me and my creative brain. We have a golden thread where everyone is excited to take this forward momentum because now we have a direction. And now when we get presented with an opportunity, or I get presented with an opportunity, there is always a check-in with both my gut, because I'm a very intuitive feeling person. There's a check-in with my gut, and there's a check-in with my vision to say, does this opportunity align with where we want to go and our greater mission and my greater mission as a whole? And if the answer is yes, we look at it. And if the answer is no, I politely decline. The other beautiful thing, and as clinic owners as a whole, too often I think we work in our businesses too long and we don't work on the business. So again, we are building momentum now. It is absolutely freaking beautiful. We have clients that fly in from all over the world. My therapists are super excited. Everyone is diving in. Everyone is learning. We have some amazing new offerings coming up to support other clinics and clinicians in this space as well, which I'm so excited for. And everybody is on board. We got our North Star and we're going strong. It also allows me to step out of my clinical role. I don't treat full-time. Do I still treat 100%? I personally at this point feel like for me to mentor the clinicians that I mentor, I still also need to be in the front lines in some capacity. I learn so much from every single client I treat, and being in those experiences still makes me a better clinician and a better mentor. So do I still treat 100%? Do I treat full-time? Absolutely not. Because when you're treating full-time as a clinician, you don't give yourself the space to step back to work on your business. You're always working in your business. And so now that the clinic is building its momentum again, I've been able to pull my clinical caseload back a little bit more. And now we're working on strategic partnerships in our community for neuroperformance. Now we're working on building offers to support other clinics around the island in British Columbia specifically. Now we're working on other ways to have programs to support clients, because now I have the space and time to work on the business. Also, finding those opportunities within your team that they can support. So we have one of our clinicians who is now basically like tech trainer. We have a lot of technology in my clinic. And it was that realization that I can't be the only one that understands how all of this stuff works. I can't be the only person to train it. So now one of our clinicians, in the chance to also increase their revenue in their paychecks, is that their role is team tech trainer. so that if some of the technology we have has an update or something new we need to know about it, it's their job to pull the team together and teach it. They're the ones that mentor the new task staff we have on how to use the tech in our standardized assessment through technology, right? So again, recognizing the amazing people in your own clinic and what roles you can give them as well, so everyone feels like they're part of the picture. There's so much I could talk about in this space. I just realized I've just talked about for 41 minutes of my story. But the biggest thing and the biggest lesson for me through this part of it was knowing what you want, knowing that you don't have to know the entire path to get there. But if you know where you want to be and that you're open to absorbing, learning, and you're open to like the unexpected things that you might never even anticipate coming your direction, but that where you want to be acts as your North Star to be that point for you so that you don't get pulled in all these directions is so important. If you believe in yourself and that vision that you have, when you're in those really scary moments where you're scared you're going to friggin' lose everything, you also know that you will come through it and you will find a way to come through it. And when you lead from a place of heart, when you lead from a place of truly you're there because you want to have a positive impact on the people you serve and the people that are in your team, that is felt. And people will rally behind you when you ask for it and when you need it. You don't have to have years upon years upon years upon years of experience to start a business. That's where mentors come into play so that we can help you in the process so that you don't make the mistakes that we made, because we've already made them once. So you don't need to make them again. You don't need to make them for yourself. And finding that space for yourself where if you are someone who is similar to me, who there's many things that fill my cup and that make me passionate and that make me a happy human being, I am not the person who's happy with doing the same thing every day. I need novelty and I need change. And so if you can create a world for yourself where you can do both, I want to tell you it's possible. The amount of coaches that I've had some amazing coaches in my life, some amazing mentors. And I've also been told more times than one that I don't get to have it all and I don't get to do both and I have to choose one thing. And to that, I say no. Can I grow two things simultaneously? I'm doing it right now. If I did focus on one thing only, would it potentially grow faster? Quite possibly, yeah. But what makes me happy? If I was only doing just one of, so let's look at my two major things right now, right? My clinic, Symphony Brain Performance, and my Concussion Nerds program are my two big things. Overall, we created the Natasha Built brand, which encompasses a whole bunch of things, but like two big things are my Concussion Nerds program and my clinic. I'm going to tell you right now, if you told me I had to put one of those aside to just focus on the other one, I would be a miserable human being because I love them both. And they both fill my cup. And they both have amazing impact. And I've been able to figure out, although some weeks are a bit sketchy still with the amounts on my plate, I've been figuring out a way that I can do both. And I'm okay with each growing a little bit slower so that I can do both of them simultaneously. Because what I do know now, and I am very clear on now, is my North Star. And everything I do, both in terms of the clinic and in my online space, which we can talk about that on a different episode because I realized I really just talked about the clinic. Everything I do always comes back to that North Star. This space, when I say like I've been able to hire more staff in the last year and a half than I had been able to in the 3 years before, I am not joking. It is really cool to work in neuroscience and concussion right now. It is really valuable to be able to niche down if you choose to, and that's what you want to do. I promise you'll be able to make a business out of it. I promise. I just got stunned by my own thought process here. Sorry. To silence. When you see business owners who are crushing, when you see business owners who you think have it all figured out, who are doing amazing things, know that behind the scenes, they've probably made a crap ton of mistakes to get there. And throughout that journey of getting there, they've probably also had to do some deep work on themselves as well. That is a little bit more into my insight. What I hope in sharing and what I hope in being a little bit more vulnerable about my own journey, particularly with my clinic, is that if you are struggling in a clinic setting and you're wondering about, can I niche down? How do I incorporate this? Can I incorporate this? The answer is 100% yes, you can to all those things. Also know that you might have a goal of having a multi-7-figure clinic, and that's cool. You might also have a goal of being a solo provider and working in your own small space. Also cool. But know that you can't live to just achieve that moment. You need to live for the lessons you're going to learn along the way, because if you don't embrace those lessons along the way, the moment isn't going to be as sweet. And know that you don't need to know your full path. You need to know your next couple steps. But when you know your next couple steps, start to take one. Because if you wait till you have everything mapped out ahead of you, you just might never begin. And that would be detrimental and so sad. So, believe in yourself. Know who you are and what you want. Use your vision as your North Star to check in on opportunity. When momentum starts rumbling, definitely use that North Star. Know that pretty much all of us have probably almost lost everything and had to rebuild at least once in our lives. And that each rebuild is another opportunity, another journey, and it's just part of the process. So, I hope this was helpful. If you are a clinician, you are interested in the business realm of things, and you do love concussion, come join our virtual summit, which will be this fall in September. In the show notes, there is a waitlist that you can join. Not only will we be talking about concussion and different aspects around concussion, but because business in the concussion space is also so powerful for me, we absolutely have conversations and speakers talking about business, and we have a star-studded business panel for live Q&A to talk about brick and mortar, hybrid, the neuroscience space, all the things business in this space as well. And if you are interested in diving deeper into the world of concussion, to having that intimate knowledge, to being able to look at those assessments and treatments in a very specific, individualized, integrative way, and you want business coaching on top of that, reach out, send me a DM on Instagram, and let's chat about concussion nerds, because it might be what's waiting for you next. All right, my friends, I wish you an amazing evening, and we will talk to you soon. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.